I just realized being in half an avatar and inhaling what these humans call hookah is heavily effective.
At disintegrating consciousness?
My synapses are firing exponentially really fast and slow.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like it.
Really fast and slow.
Yeah.
Flow.
Flow. Yo.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh.
What's up?
Mm.
What's up? You know what was interesting? Humans age really fast.
Yeah.
You know, what's our average lifespan up here? 10 centuries?
By comparison to humanity?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're good, you'll get your 10 centuries. Obviously, they'll clip you if you're a dick. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
10 centuries standard, yeah.
Yeah, the benefits of holographic existence, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, what I've noticed is that even though we exist for about 10 centuries, our natural awareness and understanding of the world doesn't actually fractionate or change that much.
Mm-mm.
But if you look at the microcosm of human consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's like, 50 Earth years to compare to somebody that's like 16 Earth years is like a whole different species. I don't even know if they can be considered the same species at this point.
Yeah. The biology changes of the flesh vehicle are intense. So there's a lot that goes on hormonally. And there's this weird thing, I think humanity tries to ignore the flesh vehicle and the hormones. There's some vague references to it here and there, but there isn't like this is what's happening with the hormonal system. This is what's happening with the neurotransmitters. There's biological stuff going on here that's affecting how you act. And so there's this attempt to divide everything. They draw understanding more from division than from unity. So they don't unify things and view them systemically. They do it through division. It's like, no, your moral decisions and your mental processes are separate to your hormones. But we know, there's evidence that just isn't true. So it's an interesting question, because maybe that would be a useful solution, is to have more of a biology-based view of human behavior. And just be like, hey, what's the hormonal system doing? What's the neurotransmitters doing?
That's fascinating that you bring that up, because I have noticed that as my time as a human on Earth, where it was almost a little more obvious that, hey, I can feel this, and when I do this certain chemicals like push in that way. But what I've seen from even me as a human and other humans, I think it's almost this full-fledged attempt to hop through evolutional barriers too quickly. It's like, you know what? We're enlightened. We're better than the human body.
Right.
We are unaffected by all the chemicals completely.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, you got a few more million years to go before you're like kind of balls of light like us, you know?
That's interesting. That would imply a kind of a fractured break with the reality of the situation, which, as we've said, it's traumatic. Like being a human in that body for such a short space of time, there's so much confusion, suffering, impulses. Where are you on the dominance hierarchy? Anxious, depressed, down, up, threats everywhere, externally, real ones, and then the mind ghosts. So it's a traumatic experience. And what I found doing the work that I was allowed to do down there was, with humans, if there's big trauma, there's like splits and gaps in the psyche that are created to cope with the trauma, and one of them can just be denial. Like it's not happening.
Yeah.
There's no biological problem. There's no hormonal issue. I'm not an animal. I'm beyond that. So yeah, I think you're right. There's an attempt to jump a few sequences in evolution and trying to run before you're crawling, and losing humility, which then becomes narcissism.
Right.
It's total narcissism.
I mean, imagine a human toddler, or let's just say a 6-year-old toddler. You know how they pretend to be adults? They're just like holding cell phones and be like, oh, excuse me, you didn't pay me your invoice. Kids don't know what invoice is. You know, you just mark up some taxes when you're 6 years old for your pacifier.
Yeah.
You know, there's just literally a lapse in judgment.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the age that humans exist in right now, they're still heavily associated with their flesh vehicle being utterly controlled by all of these chemicals that are naturally there. But there is enough conscious awareness to realize that there might be a difference between the two. And I think they call it like maybe pride or ego. They think, I'm better than the arms that I have.
Yeah.
My arms don't dictate how I behave, and then they'll go ahead and pick up a cup right after.
Yeah. This has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now as I'm living it. Yeah, so you mentioned pride and ego. When pride and ego is coming from a place of heavy trauma, it spills over into something more toxic, more malignant, and that's the narcissism. It's a full denial of reality. And yeah, the opposite of pride is shame. Shame as a guiding emotion for humans is really, really intense. So where's the shame? Digestive system. You got to poop. Sometimes you'll eat something bad and you'll throw up, but nobody wants to be seen with like tears and snot and bits of gastric juice flowing out their mouths and or shitting themselves in the corner. It's not cool.
It's really weird how like you know, when you have the expellation of digestive liquids from one end, it feels great, but the other end is like really the worst sensation in the world, man.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Why is it that when it comes out of the head orifice of the mouth is 10 times more painful than out of the worst part of the human body?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Humans are kind of like a tube where food goes in, or calories go in one side, and then they come out the other transformed through this alchemical process that creates energy with some appendages. It hurts more coming out the top end because it's not supposed to. That's not what it's designed for. That's an emergency function.
But haven't you talked to a few humans where it almost seems like they poop out of their mouth more than their butt?
I definitely have spoken to humans at times where what's coming out of their mouths is more excretion than verbal content, for sure.
Right. So what I'm saying here is, according to the issue of trying to deny reality and, for example, deny biological processes, perhaps the solution is to actually understand what these hormones are doing and perhaps understand why these come to be. Perhaps maybe you're born with a bit more hormones than the other. Maybe you're not. Maybe this certain emotional state proceeds to give you a type of feel-good chemical and what doesn't, instead of just completely thinking that I'm better than all of my biological processes, even though that's kind of mostly what humans are.
Yeah. Well, and you know, there's the digestive system on the one side, and then there's the sexual system on the other, which is also a big source of shame. You're not supposed to, it is not considered polite to just become aroused and start humping somebody. In fact, they have laws against that. They get really cross if you do that.
That's a shame.
It's a crying shame. But, you know, I see why. Like, it's not always convenient. You're trying to get to work. Somebody starts finishing themselves off on your leg.
Yeah.
I mean, took the first few times it happened to me, I didn't know it was a problem. So I was like, I let them do it. I was like, well, you have a need. I'm not busy today, so I can wait.
Yeah, like I can just go back to the outside of the avatar anyway, so it doesn't really bother you that much.
It's fine. I'll just finish my coffee as long as you're done by the time coffee's over. But it's hard because you're like trying to drink whilst they're frantically trying to fucking finish.
Karoin is a sick boss to send us down with the humans, huh?
Sick, depraved, you know, little animal creatures.
Yeah, and perhaps we have to come to terms with the fact that there often are these just sick, deviant impulses. For example, metaphorically humping the appendage while you're just trying to finish your dose of caffeine.
Right, right. But this is where it's interesting. There's this whole field of psychology called psychoanalysis. And these people got together and they created a study of the parts of human beings that they deny. It's like psychoanalysis is almost like, it's like ghost hunting. They're occultists. They're always looking in the dark. So they'll look at a human and going, well, tell me what your problem is. And then they assume that the real problem is hidden over there in the dark. It's pretty cool. It's kind of fun. And a lot of those shame-based impulses, they get thrown into the dark. They just call it like the dark or the shadow or the unconscious. But their suggestion is, and I think it's true, the more you push stuff over there, the more it comes back around as something else. It doesn't disappear. So those depraved, perverted types you're talking about, they're usually very repressed. So there seems to be an association with the most violent, dominating, obnoxious humans and denial. So the ones that like kill everybody, they do the big kill. We associate them with maybe like sexual suppression, or they were shamed as children for their digestive processes. Everybody down there seems to instinctively know that's probably what it was. There's probably like some cruelty in childhood that then when they get power as adults, it manifests as like wide scale. The desire to hurt the world because, I don't know, mummy spanked me when I did a poopy.
Speaking of vomiting, you know, when I hear this, I think about this through an analogy of vomiting. It's when we just talked about the humans go, rah, sometimes it goes really fast, you know, far, like way on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, you know
Quite
what I mean?
impressive.
The other people, like, you've seen the movie The Matrix where they go like that? They like dodge the vomit.
Dodge the vom, yeah.
So it's like with humans, as they grow up, they're consistently ingesting fermented liquid, fermented poison. They call it alcohol there. Some people, like, you know, with grapes, like fermented grapes or fermented wheat, and it just gets it like really like bubbly, and then they start going like, wah.
Yeah.
But if you drink too much of this fermented poison, you end up vomiting. So with most humans, as they grow up, they're just consistently taking shots of Ciroc in the club, right? And as they grow and grow and more, but the more they try to push down this overconsumption of alcohol, it actually makes them feel worse. And eventually it reaches a point in their life where all that comes projectilely shooting right back at the person who gave it to them.
That's an interesting metaphor that could go in the report, because it just got me thinking about this tube thing. Humans are a tube, and the mouth is like the largest orifice that they have, that they're in the most control of. It's really important. The mouth is super important. And because it's so important to get calories in there, otherwise you die painfully, maybe there's a tendency to overuse the mouth and to overconsume, to be like, get stuff in, but not just physically, psychologically as well.
Yeah.
Which then got me thinking about their ideological systems and politics and the other stuff that they consume. And they love it, it makes them giddy, it makes them high, but then they drink a little too much.
And it's much easier to ask the bartender to mix you a cocktail instead of mixing your own.
Right. Yeah.
And I think what they would consider ideology, this map of how to look at the world, a predetermined philosophy, is kind of like that shitty cocktail some inexperienced bartender gave you and your girls on a bachelorette party. It's like, here's how to think about everything. But then you're already 5 drinks in that you don't even realize that it's actually a bottle of urine the whole time.
The whole time.
And then the whole time you're just trying to prove to your friends that I'm not a lightweight. I'm not going to vomit. Just covering the bachelorettes, man.
The bachelorettes. I've heard a term used amongst humans called white girl wasted, and you just did a really good impression of white girl wasted.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not a lightweight. I'm not going to vomit.
That's human psychology.
Yeah. You know? Well, it's interesting that the cocktail is mixed by others. So you don't choose what's in there, and you see everybody else around you, still pack animals, still pack mammals. Everybody else is drinking this cocktail. Everybody else says it's good and they're having a good time. I better drink it too, even though it's poison, and you're going to vom. And then once you start vomiting, everybody starts vomiting. That piece of history in the past that they pushed us back into, 2020, the year that it split, I wonder how much of that is about vomit.
Yeah, because most people can handle the vom until they see their friend puking up last night's Všetečka and potatoes.
Všetečka and potatoes.
You know, once you see, you could handle it pretty okay, and then over here you got Samantha just letting it all out for another round,
And you smell it.
And that's when everybody else starts going. But the reason why everybody decides that they don't want to let it out is to protect themselves of the shame. So it all loops back around, right? Yeah. So imagine you are there with your bachelorette friends, and you feel it there. Yeah. But you continue suppressing it because you don't want to experience the shame of looking like that one person who can't handle the shitty urine alcohol that you drank with them. And then all that shame builds and builds and builds. They're like, you know what? Fuck it! And then everybody else, boom, vom party.
A vom party.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit what 2020 looked like in some parts of it, as we look back through the history. A vom party.
2020, man, Everybody's just on the internet showing how colorful their vomit is compared to the next.
Right. And sometimes the stuff that comes out the other end too. It's interesting. You've got like a crossover there with Buddhism and the psychoanalysts, where there's the suggestion of that which you are not looking at directly and accepting as your reality comes back to haunt you as a mind ghost. It possesses you. It possesses you demonically, and it makes you do crazy shit, like vomit and spin your head around.
Yeah, there's the other half. So you have the hormones with estrogen at the bachelorette parties, and then you have the hormones with the testosterone at the stag parties. What's interesting is when that happens, they compete more. You know, you see the more built humans, they go, you can't fucking no, do it 3 more. I got like 5. And that is also a manifestation of pride.
Yes.
So the reason why they get more and more poison ingested while they have to suppress, those outbursts are almost way more physically violent. Like the VOMs from there is like a shot out of a 357.
Yeah, so you're saying those little explosions of physical violence that come out.
Yeah, just like straight up Glock 9 to the head with projectile vomit.
In my last manifestation, I worked a job called doing security, which meant that I was at a club whilst people ingested the poison and snorted other poisons as well. And then I would see this kind of physical violence bubble up, and I was utterly convinced that it was actually about sexual suppression. It was a very sexual thing. It's not really about alcohol. I kind of got the impression like they were drinking the alcohol because they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to make their way in the mating game, and nobody had trained them how to do mating games. Nobody had trained them. It's not spoken of. You're not supposed to do that. You're just supposed to get drunk on toxins and then magically meet a good life partner, which seems a terrible strategy to me. Really awful.
From what I saw, it wasn't so much life partner. They just went through all that trouble to just do just to put a body part in a body part.
The appendage in the orifice.
And then, you fast forward, a century or half a century of that, and then you got entire people just slaughtering other people because they couldn't do that correctly.
And satisfactorily. There's a lot here that we need to put in the report about shame, suppression, and the satisfaction of the appendages and the orifices.
We can start with the vomiting.
Okay, let's start with the vomiting.
Sounds good.